Welcome to Sales Velocity TV, where we pull back the curtain on how the top businesses in the world sell more with less resistance. Bringing over 50 plus years of combined sales experience and over 100 million in revenue generated, please welcome the hosts of Sales Velocity TV and two incredibly entertaining gentlemen, Andrew Cass and Aaron Parkinson.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Sales Velocity TV and Radio. I'm Andrew. That's Aaron from the beach house in the Cayman Islands. I can see, not the normal studio background if you're watching the show live on Facebook. But hey, it suits you.
Well, I'm not sure if I like the background as much as I like it in my normal studio,
right.
But did some traveling, went to Florida as we talk about the world's opening up. Saw you for a couple days, took my kids to all the major attractions, and had to quarantine for a couple days on the way back as part of the rules here.
The rules of the Cayman Islands. I'm deciding if I'm going to go with my vintage yellows today, but keep going. I don't mean to interrupt anybody.
So this is my last day of quarantine. Just went and got the old COVID nose swab. Felt like I got a brain probe, to get that done, and I'll be out of here at the end of the day. But you know what? It's been kind of nice. I've actually never stayed in this beach condo. We use it as an Airbnb and a VRBO, and I was like, I've been out here for 5 days, and I'm like, that's pretty nice in here.
Time for the vacation to end, pal. Enough is enough. We're talking today about the critical components that you need to stay focused today as a top producer. And it is really hard to stay focused today, I think, with social media, the pandemic going on, politics. Every part of the world is kind of navigating through this differently. It's tough today. It's tough today, Aaron, to stay focused and keep your head down. I mean, you and I battle with it too. You get pulled in so many directions already, but during kind of an international pandemic / crisis / health issue here, it's even harder. I mean, it really is a battle today. And we're going to dissect some of the things that you're going to really need to become conscious of to be able to play the game at a high level today. And if you're watching this show, most likely you want to play the game at a high level because this is a show on sales and growing your business and growing your company. It's hard to do today with the amount of distractions that we have. So I'm looking forward to this. Yeah,
we're going to cover three sort of core topics that we feel are important. And I this is not something that we are masters of. I don't think.
By no means.
I don't think anybody's a master, of anything. But it's something that we work diligently on. So we wanted to share because I know you run into the same things, and I'm sure our listeners and our watchers do as well, where all of a sudden you can go an entire week and you can look around and go, what did I actually do?
Done this week? Man, I was really busy, but I don't know what I did.
Right. And you realize that you've worked in the business instead of on the business.
Yeah. Sure.
And you feel like you have nothing tangible to show for it. And usually if that goes on long enough, what ends up happening is the business doesn't move forward.
Right.
And when you feel like you're getting in that rut, you got to take a step back and you got to ask yourself, okay, is my focus in the right place, right? Am I working on the right things? Is something pulling me in a different direction that it shouldn't be, right? Because if you don't, it's inevitably going to be, a slide, into, the results that you don't want to see, right?
A slide into the abyss, right?
Into the abyss, right?
Yep.
And
exactly.
And so the first one we want to talk about today, and it seems obvious until you actually ask some people. Like we ask our clients and our other entrepreneurs all the time, what are your goals right now? What is your 1 week goal? What is your 30-day goal? What is your 90-day goal? And everybody's heard this a million times before. So everyone's like, oh, I know about goals. Okay, cool. Tell me your 7-day goal. Tell me your 30-day goal. Tell me your 90-day goal, right? And then you see where the rubber hits the road.
Or you kind of get that deer in headlights moment, right?
Yeah, and they're like, well, it's to increase sales. Really? By how much? How are you going to do that? Well, you have to have a really clearly outlined plan, not just for what you want to accomplish, but the actions that are going to correspond in that 7-day, 30-day, 90-day window to allow you to accomplish those goals. So it's not just about setting the goals. It's about saying, okay, here's my goal. Okay, what are the actions that are going to be required in order to achieve that goal? Because once you get clarity on what those two things are, what the goal is and what the actions are that are going to make it a reality, then when you get thrown into the mix, because, business is organized chaos at the best of times, you can start to look at those hour-long blocks in your day and reference back to the goal, what needs to happen to achieve the goal, and you can start to weigh out the value of what you're doing in those time blocks to see if they correlate with what you said you wanted to do, or are you getting sucked into the matrix? Right?
Yeah.
So I know that you know exactly what this is about because, you get pulled in a million directions on a daily basis.
I think we both do. I think everybody does, right? I think anybody that's busy and productive does. I mean, there's no way to not get pulled into a million directions throughout the day these days with all the communication channels that we're facing today, right? So we're gonna break down these big three. Number one is just, we use the term loosely goals, but really it's even if you want to strip the term goals out of this, Aaron, and maybe just like objectives, things you're shooting for, right? To not use the old beat down goals term, but I find that that's number one, and we'll get into each one. The second one is how you handle your the physicality of your life, physical fitness. Do you have a movement and an exercise routine? Because you'll never produce really anything long term if you don't. We talk about it a lot on this show. And the third piece is your mental state, kind of that personal development component. So we'll break down all three. But as far as the goals thing that you just mentioned, I find that when I don't have a specific project that I'm working on, and sometimes I give them to myself for this reason, it's almost like I allow myself to get sucked into a million different things. But when I have a project, or I have a marketing campaign, or a funnel that I'm working on, or I'm launching a new product, like the things that generate revenue that I enjoy doing, and you need to find it too. What are the things you like doing that generate the most revenue? Bury yourself in those kind of projects, and the distractions will take care of themselves, actually, because you're so buried in the project that you can't help but eliminate distractions. Now, when you don't have something big going on, which is why I like to rig the deck in my favor, try to get something big to happen. Go do something you've been meaning to do in the business, whether it be building a new campaign, whether it be creating that podcast you've always wanted to create. Go get into that production, and trust me when I tell you, all the noise and the distraction starts to go away. When you don't have a whole lot going on, and you don't have big rocks to move, you get sucked in a million directions. So to me, that's the math that you need to play. And I find that when I get kind of down and sucked in, we were talking about this when you were in Florida. If I get sucked into things, the media, the news, whatever, it's because I don't have enough going on right now. Not that I'm bored. I'm never bored. It's just I got to really dig in and give myself some deadlines and knock some goals out. That's the key.
Yeah, and I think that that's one way definitely to control it. Exactly what we talked about is have your big objectives and keep the main thing every week until it's done.
Yes.
Right? And then you can worry about the minutia. The other way that I like to do it as well is if I've got my goals set out and I know the objectives that I have to do to reach those goals, then theoretically there should be some type of monetary association with reaching those goals, right? So for me, I'm a big proponent of understand what your time is worth per hour, right? And then when you go in and you look at all the things that people want you to address that day or what you have in your calendar or whatever, I look at them independently and I ask myself, is this worth X amount of dollars per hour?
See, that's good. That's good awareness, by the way. A lot of people just kind of do everything unconsciously. You have this conscious awareness in that example right there, where as you're doing things, you're questioning, should I be doing these things, right? That's big.
Yeah, I'm weighing it against where I want to be and where I'm at today. And the first thing I do almost every single morning is I look at my calendar and I ask myself if they're of value, if they associate with what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'll try to kill off two of them or push them to somebody else to go and do because they're not in alignment with where I want to be with my goals or even where I'm at today. If you make $200 an hour, and you're answering your own emails, it's probably not a good idea. I'm sure somebody can answer your emails or get rid of 80% of them for you, that are garbage, for less than $200 an hour, right? If you value your time at, $1,000 an hour, right? What are your $1,000 an hour activities? And when you're constantly refining it against that model, you'll find that you look at your calendar and you go, this literally isn't worth my time.
We use the phrase a lot here on the show. I got it from Dan Kennedy years ago. Most business owners are confusing activity with accomplishment.
Correct.
It was one of the most moving statements I heard 10 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever it was, because I was like, wow, that like hit me between the eyes, because that's what we said in the beginning. That's like most people's week. I had all this activity, but I didn't move the needle much in the business. And that's the key right here. And this takes like hyper awareness, by the way, right? To be aware of
you can actually line up with what I said with what you said,
yep.
Right? Which makes sense, because if you got a project and you say, okay, when this project is completed, this project is going to make the business or make me an additional $50,000 a year, right? But it's going to take me 10 hours to knock that out, right? That's a $5,000 an hour activity that you
good
just
way
did.
Of looking at it, right? Good way of assigning the math to it, right? Is what you did there.
Exactly. Right? So for me, I'm a very numbers-oriented person. You know that. I'm looking at spreadsheets and analytics and data all day long.
Thank God you are, because I'm not. It's always good to run a business when someone else is the numbers guy. And, you know, it's funny because Aaron and I, when we run Pipeline Pro together, our software company, you know, now it's a global powerhouse now in 20 countries. And, you know, he's the traffic and the numbers guy, and I'm the funnel and the conversion guy. So we're like, you know, at the end of the day, not to sound arrogant, but we are like a really tough to top 1-2 punch, because I can be in my silo over here working on sales funnels and sales processes and, you know, all that piece. But over here, you could have the greatest sales funnel in the world, but if you don't have a data and a numbers and a traffic guy to run the right traffic to it, then it's for nothing. So it's always both, not one or the other. And it just so happens that we're able to divide and conquer like that. It really is, you know, it's a tough to top situation. So think about that too, right? Is where are you strong, where are you weak, and maximize that.
Yeah, so let's go into number 2. And for those people who've been longtime listeners, I think sometimes they're like, why do these guys harp on this so much?
But hold on, before you go to number 2, one thing I want to leave off on the goals thing. So one of the things I recommend, if you're like, wow, I just do so much stuff and I don't really know what I should be doing, I kind of get pulled in a lot of directions, follow yourself around for a week. As crazy as that sounds. Follow yourself around for a week and keep a not to-do list. Not a to-do list, but an I hate to-do list. Every time you're doing something that you're like, oh man, this is just such it makes me nauseous to think about it. It's admin related. It's not revenue producing. It isn't a great use of my time, but it needs to get done. It's busy work. Make a list. I would bet that 60 to 80% of the items on that list could be delegated for not a lot of money, which would give you your time back, which would allow you to make a lot of money. Try on the I hate to-do list.
I couldn't agree more. We've actually had our clients make a spreadsheet and record every single thing they did in a day and how long they did it for in blocks for a week, and then go back and review it after the week and see how many of those blocks were filled with busyness instead of actually doing business.
Instead of accomplishment.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And then figure out, how do I get those away from me so that I can put the focus on the main thing and keep it on the main thing.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But that's a great point, and I'm glad you brought it up.
Number 2.
The number 2 thing is, in order to stay focused on achieving your goals, right, we all have to remember that we're inside these machines, right? So we've got 2 parts to the machine. We've got the brain, right, and we've got the body, right? Maybe the soul is the third piece.
I think so.
Right, if you want to, if that's, you know, your belief system, right? But for sure, we've got 1 and 2. We got brain and we've got body, right? And most people, they misunderstand how important the body is to the brain, right? And a great example of this is, and I don't think you were at this seminar with me, Andrew. I went to a seminar with a guy named Bill Phillips. I don't remember Bill Phillips.
Bill Phillips was he was the creator of metrics and EAS Sports Nutrition, and then, you know, the Body for Life guy, best-selling.
That's right.
He was
wrote
a
Body for Life
monster
as well.
in fitness in the 90s.
He was huge.
I know exactly who he is. Yeah, he's probably in his late 60s now, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and I was at this seminar with him, talked to him for a long time, super nice guy.
Body for Life.
Body for Life.
Body for Life.
Right? And what he said, actually what he showed us was this diagram of 2 topical pictures of the brain, right? Mm-hmm. And the first diagram he showed us is how lit up the brain was post-exercise versus pre-exercise.
Yep.
Right? The amount of kinetic activity that was happening inside of it.
Yeah, brain pathways open.
Right. And then he actually showed the same thing side by side with somebody who was dramatically obese.
Like somebody who was lethargic, sedentary, right? That was the
It was
comparison?
actually his example, because he was talking about body fat percentage, because that was his thing, was he was showing the same example with somebody who's obese, right? And he said, scientifically, you know, if you're keeping yourself active and you're working out constantly, you have much more brain activity, so your work is going to be much more focused and productive. But he took it an extra step and said, basically, if your body as a whole is not healthy, right? If it's storing too much body fat,
Yep.
He was showing us the speed at which the neurons fired with different layers of fat content around them. So what he was showing is that when there was a lower fat content, the neurons fired significantly faster. When
you say lower fat in the body as a whole makes the brain function.
Correct.
Yeah,
and that's when he showed these stats and these diagrams, everyone was super interested. And at the end, he said, now I'm just going to simplify it down, right? Nobody wants to hear this, but being fat makes you stupid.
He said, that's true.
A fact. That's a scientific fact.
It's a scientific fact. That is not a theory or an argument.
Right. And he said, the thing is that most people focus on like basically defining themselves as something. He's like, nobody is fat and nobody is fit. He said the people who are fat are just storing too much body fat. They're storing too much energy that they're not using. You are not fat or fit. It's not a definition. You are just storing too much useless energy that you're not tapping into. So you need to shed some of that unneeded useless energy so your neurons will fire faster and you can be more productive.
That's the brain-body connection you're talking about.
That's the brain-body connection, right? So I see this right away. Like I'm on quarantine right now, as you know, and I'm out doing a Tabata with my kids for 12 minutes on the deck every single day. I feel amazing. I've got my X3 bar in here. I'm hitting that every day because you can't sit at a desk for 12 hours a day and maintain a high level of productivity to achieve what you want to achieve. It's just not, it's not my opinion. It's not your opinion. It's science.
It's fact. You're absolutely right about it. It's amazing how few get it, right? Like I can't even, it's amazing how sedentary we are as a culture today. I guess I'm referring to the US probably.
Oh, I don't
know. I mean, it's worldwide. We have by far the highest obesity rate in the first world in the world by far in the United States, not even a close second. Right. So, as much as I want to say America's a pretty fit part of the world, the more I talk about it, we're really not. It's one of the reasons we have such high COVID cases, by the way, is because COVID or any coronavirus is a magnet to obesity and inflammation and fat. Fat is inflammation, right? But what it does to the brain for today's purposes for productivity is unbelievable. The scientific studies are in the thousands on the brain-body connection and the pathways that open up when you work out. So if you want to get to a high level of production in business, which probably is why you watch this show, and you have really nothing going on fitness-wise or exercise-wise, you're kind of really not in alignment with what you want, and you're kind of faking it, in my view. And by the way, I'm going to throw some daggers now. By the way, walking down the block is not exercise; it's transportation. Okay, it's good. Movement is good.
It's better than nothing.
But when we talk about exercise and neurons and blood vessels opening up and being alert and smart and sharp for a long time, we're talking about some pretty intense strength training, high intensity type workout. Jogging a marathon, 26 miles, great, not great for the body, horrible for the mitochondria, terrible on the joints, not going to give you the same effect as high intensity strength training. Adding muscle to the body will be the greatest non-inflammatory sharpness thing you can do for your life. So you got to build muscle. As crazy and as maybe as cosmetic as that sounds, it's got to be a strength training, high intensity muscle building type thing. And let me preface that. You're not going to turn into Mr. Olympia because you lifted weights for a week. That's the other little alibi that people like, right? I don't want to get too big, or I don't want to get too bulky. I'm a girl. Nobody has, I shouldn't say nobody, 99.7% of the population does not have the genetics to get bulky and muscular in any real significant way. Or what?
Or good illegal drugs. Right?
Yeah, of course, right? So
like, you work out like a very consistent savage human being, and you are not bulky.
Savage,
right? You are just fit. That's normal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I felt it even.
And here's the funny thing, Aaron. I've like tried I'm 48 now, so I don't try like I did when I was 28, but I've tried my whole life to get big and bulky, and I couldn't do it. 30 years trying to get like Schwarzenegger, doing everything I can, eating all the food, lifting all the weights, and I think I might have moved the needle from an overall just bulky muscle, standpoint a little bit in college, and I'm fit and muscular now, but I couldn't get to the bulky, looking weird, Mr. Olympia type level any day of the week, even if I tried, even with drugs, no less, by the way, because it's such a small pocket, teeny percentage of genetics that exist in the world where someone can get like that. So that's the misconception is I don't want to do that strength training or that high intensity stuff because I'm going to look all muscular and bulky.
Well, and
not the case. Is never going to happen.
You got to remember that the more you work your muscles, the more they need to be fed. Right. The more that they need to be fed, the more fat they burn. Right? They burn off that unused storage energy that you have in your body, right?
Right.
And the neurons fire up in your brain and you feel good, you get the endorphin release, you get the creative inspiration, you get all these things triggered. So if you don't have a daily exercise routine built into your business, I don't care if you have the Ferrari of businesses, you're never going to drive that Ferrari.
You won't go the distance.
More than third gear. You're going to be in third gear the whole time.
And by the way, just to I always like to keep things achievable, right? When we're talking on the show or if we're doing any kind of coaching or training, it doesn't even have to be every day. Like I'm a believer that if you've been sedentary for a long time and you're in business and you want to scale your business, grow your business, you want to be able to manage a lot, handle a lot, be very productive, deal with staff, you're going to have to take care of your body so you can handle the pounding. May not be physical, right? It's not necessarily physical, but it's both, the pounding. And, you don't have to do something every day. You can get a regimen going Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 30 minutes just to get the habit going, right? I'm always against the sedentary person going, I made this decision. It's like the smoker. They've been smoking 19 years and they're like, I'm going to just quit cold turkey. It's not going to happen. The body can't handle it. It's too big of a leap. So if you don't have an exercise or fitness regimen in your life and you want to go all out and you want to scale your business and you want to be productive day in and day out, don't go from nothing to 6 days a week for 2 hours like a maniac. Go to 3 days a week for 30 minutes. Quality, not quantity. Get a result, build the habit, build the muscle, and then you can tack on maybe 4 days, perhaps 5, and maybe not even. I only work out every other day. People think, oh, you work out how many hours a day do you work out? People say to me at the beach all the time. I'm like, 30 minutes every other day, but I know how to work out, so I don't have to work out 2 hours a day, 6 days a week and waste my time. They're like, huh? Right?
Well, and you made an important point there that you probably don't even realize is I remember the guy that Carl, he's a good friend of mine who owns a gym down here.
Of course.
And I remember when I wanted to I just wanted to get a little bit better results, and I was going every other day, or I was going 3 days a week. Yep. He said, you want to know when you see the biggest result? When you're here more than you're not. And it was a very simple comment that I was like,
he said, when you're here more than you're not here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was like, well, that would be 4 days a week.
Consistency angle, right?
He was like, he's like, that would be 4 days a week or more if you want to be. But if you're here more than you're not, you'll see amazing transformation. If you're here less than you are, right, then you won't, right? So I'm always keep that in mind. I just want to make sure that I'm at the gym more days than I'm not. That's all. Right? Which
so on a 7-day week, it's maybe 5 days max.
It's
or
4
5
days.
days minimum, I should say, right?
4 to 5 days.
4 or 5 days, 6 maybe, right? Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
Anyways, let's move on to topic number 3, because this is a big one, and we've only got about 10 minutes left in the show today. So, the third one is what I like to call the bubble, right? The bubble is very important. I live my life talking to a lot of people, because when you're in business, typically you talk to a lot of people. But if I had to rate them on a stress level of 1 through 10, right? Anything that's above 5 in the stress level category gets removed. They get sent outside of the bubble, right? Now, maybe that means a difficult client is dealing with somebody else in my team. Maybe I'm firing that difficult client. You and I have fired clients, right? That if you don't fit in the bubble, you got to go, because the reality is that, 90% of your challenges in your business will come from the worst 10% of your customers, right? You got to be okay with letting those people go. You got to be okay with having toxic family members stay outside of the bubble. You got to be okay with cutting toxic media pounding you 24/7 out of the bubble. Your sole goal, like Warren Buffett, old guy now, right? One of the most successful people.
It's amazing how he's still running shareholder meetings once a year on CNBC being interviewed. Is he like 93?
Yeah, and the dude,
I mean, it's
dude,
incredible
like, drinks
to
a couple Coca-Colas every day.
Couldn't
and
think of anything worse for the body than soda.
Right, but you know what they said, how can you still be this sharp
Yeah.
and this happy and this productive still? He said, you know what? You know what it is?
Purpose.
I never let stress in my life. He said, the soul, if I can tell you one thing to be the most successful business person on earth, eliminate as much stress as possible, right? And what he's talking about is the bubble, right? He
protecting his surround, right?
It's protecting your mental state. And what you have to understand is everybody now wants your attention. Your team wants your attention. Your clients want your attention. The media wants your attention. The ads want your attention. Your family wants your attention. You have to really take a step back and think about, how is this affecting my mental state, right? In the same way that you want to protect your physical state, you got to protect your mental state.
Great point.
And you got to look at the things in your life that are constantly bringing stress and anxiety to you and get rid of them.
And it's very difficult to do today because we live in a society where it's an open architecture society. Everybody can kind of get to everybody today on social. We have TV. We have all the different chat channels, right? It's very difficult to not be bombarded with messaging and people to try to get to us. And the phrase I've always heard is you need to build a cage around yourself, right? How do you build, you said bubble, I say cage, right? How do you build a cage around yourself? And by the way, it's not every day and all the time. It's certain pockets I've seen in the day where you might protect your time until noon every day. Nobody can get to you until noon. Everything you do is about getting yourself mentally and physically strong first thing in the morning, as an example. And then you work on maybe your highest revenue type focused oriented work that move the needle. And then maybe at 12 noon, you say, okay, I'm going to open up to the world right now. I'm going to get on Slack. I'm going to get on Skype with my team. I'm going to answer email. I might hop on social. But if that's all the time, in and out, in and out, in and out all day, news, social media, email, Slack, Skype. I mean, you're like, and we all have it happen at times, but to become conscious of it and allocate time to it, I think is where we're going here, is protecting your mental state so that you can produce at the highest level possible, right? Having the goals and the objectives, having the fitness, protecting the mental state, the big three here today, so that you can produce at the highest level possible. Discount all three, Aaron, and it's not a good situation.
Right. If you can get all three going and working in tandem together, you'll find that you just feel like an unstoppable human being. And I want to sort of reference your analogy that you made with the fitness side. Like, you don't just want to jump into 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, right? Like, let's start with something small. Right.
Base
For
hits.
me, what I started,
stand up singles, base hits, maybe a sliding double, right?
Sure. Work up to it.
Baseball terms.
Right? Work up to it. Right. Is for me, when I looked at my mental state about 6 months ago, I was feeling drained all the time. Mm-hmm. I did what I always do. I took a step back and I analyzed it and I said, what's causing this issue?
What are you feeling, like frustration, angst?
Yeah, like
irritable,
just perpetual, like ding 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 ding, and I wasn't sleeping the way I wasn't able to sleep well. And I wasn't feeling recharged the next day, and I wasn't feeling excited to go and work on stuff. And I was just feeling this like almost like minor depression. It was burnout.
Ooh.
I mean, you can give it a bunch of
that's really good that you noticed that, because I can't tell you how long people go without noticing exactly that, right?
Yeah, and you just got to be objective and take a step back. And so one of the things, and you kind of laughed at me when I did it, is I said, after 5 o'clock from now on, I'm turning off all notifications on my phone. So you can't text me, you can't Slack me. I won't check my email.
Are you still doing that to this day?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good. That's a good benchmark habit right there.
And here's an interesting thing. I haven't done it this week since I've been here in quarantine because I have nothing to do. And I've noticed the same feelings have crept in all week. When I'm with my family in my house with my wife and my kids, I've made a commitment to them, so it's easier for me to stick to it. But here there was no commitments. And I can tell you it affected me all week. I was working till like 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, Then my brain wouldn't shut off. Then I couldn't get to sleep. So then I was falling to sleep at 11:30.
Good info.
9:30, 10, and then I was
downward spiral,
unrested, right? They all have a cataclysmic effect, right? And so it's reinforced that. So all I'm saying is, if you want to start going into the bubble, start trying small things and stacking them up to see. Maybe for you, it's not checking your email until 9 o'clock in the morning, right? You work on other things that matter to you. Maybe it's turning some things off at night. Maybe it's just setting a time you're going to be done at night. Maybe it's setting an amount of hours that you're going to sleep, right? Maybe it's getting rid of that one idiot that works in your team that's always causing problems, right? Maybe it's cutting that one family member out that all they want to do is bring you drama all the time by saying, look, I don't want to hear about the drama anymore. Unless you're calling me to say hi, hello, I love you. Like, don't call, right? Just start with a couple things that allow you to stay in that bubble, to protect your mental state, because you are the Energizer battery that powers your business, right? And if you allow that battery to get drawn down, right, eventually it's just going to empty. And now what, right? So we look at having strong goals, weekly, 30-day, 90, having a plan on what it's going to take to accomplish them, looking at your calendar and what you work on a daily basis, and measuring out what is of value to you and what really isn't, right? Having concrete projects that you're focusing on that are going to move the needle, so they're worth your investment of time. Taking care of your body on a regular basis so that your neurons are firing, your endorphins are dropping, you're feeling that lightness. And looking at your surroundings and putting yourself in more of a bubble that's allowing you to keep all the good things in and keep your motivation and your energy high, and keep all the other things away from you that just want to leech that energy out of you for somebody else's benefit, quite frankly.
Yep. And it's not easy to do, right? It sounds like an easy 35-minute thing we've talked about here, but this is something you have to become hyper conscious of. We're not great at it. You slipped into it this past week, right? We all slip off. What is it called? You fall off the wagon? Is that what you did? You fell off the wagon?
Yeah, you fall off the wagon, right? But you'll notice the change, right? Yeah. Like I noticed I've been off this week, and then I was like, why am I off? And then I went, that's it. So come Monday, right? That's over. That's not happening again. I will reset. Yep. I will go back to my routines, and I will sort myself out, and I will feel better immediately. I guarantee. Right. So, I love having these conversations with you, Andrew. I love that this is a part of our show, because so many people, they want to talk about tactics all the time. Tactics, right? Mm-hmm. When you become successful enough, it actually becomes a lot less about tactics and these bigger conversations.
Yeah, bigger picture, strategic type conversations, not the tactics of how do I make more sales. Of course, we talk a lot about that on the show. It's the point of the show. But you're right. We do make a conscious effort to deviate once in a while to work on the bigger picture strategy side of things, and also the bigger picture personal side of things as well. A lot of what we're talking about right here is how you personally handle the day-to-day, how you handle yourself, how you handle your environment, so that ultimately you can become a bigger, better producer, whether it be from a sales perspective or from just a growing a company perspective. So we'll always continue to, usually every third, fourth, fifth show or so, we'll divert into something that's a little bit more about the personal side of things, how to get the most from yourself so that you can give the most to your business.
Absolutely. All right. Where can people watch or listen to our previous episodes and follow us moving forward?
Yes, we were running off schedule a tiny bit today. If you're watching live, we are normally 11 a.m. Eastern live in the Sales Velocity TV public Facebook group. You can get all past episodes of Sales Velocity TV. You can download the podcast version, which is Sales Velocity Radio, at salesvelocitytv.com. We'll see you over there. We'll see you in the next show. That's Aaron. I'm Andrew. See you in the next episode. Over and out.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Sales Velocity TV is powered by Pipeline Pro, the ultimate all-in-one sales pipeline management and marketing automation platform that makes all others obsolete. And we can prove it. Take a tour at gopipelinepro.com. See you on the next episode.